All right. Welcome everyone back to another episode of season 5 of the Broker to Broker podcast. I'm your host, Marc Summers, founding president of AIM. Very proud to say that today we have 30 years of knowledge that is legitimately coming in here. She's going to do an amazing job for us. When you have someone that's been in here 30 years, I've been in here a little over 20 now in this space. You've seen a lot of changes, from I call them the wild west days where you could walk into an office and be a loan officer that day to, borrower paid versus lender paid comp, like everyone thought the sky was falling, GFEs, LEs, CDs, all this good stuff. But anyways, enough about the past. We're going to talk about this person, like I said, who has 30 years of experience. So exciting news for the broker community. We are welcoming the founder and CEO and loan originator of Success Mortgage, Robyn Graves. Robyn, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, no problem. So, Robyn, you're obviously new as a new guest to this podcast. We always welcome new guests. What is your history? Tell us about how you've been in this industry 30 years. You've been through the crashes. You've been through all the law changes. Obviously, there's going to be more changes. This industry gets picked on more than anyone. But there's one thing I can say about this industry is we let the sky fall for a day. We figure it out, and then we move along. So, Robyn, tell us your story.
Well, boy, that took me back. All of that reminiscing. So it's kind of funny. I feel like my journey has been very directive, meaning that I got started back as a assistant manager for a consumer finance company. I remember my salary was $23,000 and I thought I had hit the jackpot. I was like, yay.
Right.
But anyway, so I did that for a while and it really gave me an opportunity to kind of learn how consumers think about money emotionally and logically. And so from there, I went into um, as a rental agent. So I was a property manager for a local builder. That gave me a lot of experience and understanding why renters rent and their mentality around renting as opposed to home buying. And then I learned that I was able to sell some of those rental units. So it gave me an opportunity to learn the sales part of real estate. From there, I got recruited into being a loan officer. I didn't know what in the world I was doing, but I thought, hey, I was doing consumer finance mortgage loans at 18.99%. So I thought 9% was pretty sweet. I could do this. So I did that. And it was amazing. It was a great experience. My first transaction as a mortgage loan broker loan officer was a refinance. And I was able to save the customer so much money, and just to see her appreciation and how it changed her financial stability was empowering. And I was like, I want to do this for everybody. So then I decided that I was going to give title a try. So I was doing mortgage loan origination, really kind of learning it. And I was also doing title and escrow. So the powers that be, our paths are always carved out for us, unbeknownst to us sometimes. But that title company shut down. And so I was forced kind of to say, okay, I'm going to make this mortgage thing work. And I jumped in full force and started my journey. And I worked for a company for 7 years as a loan originator. I learned a lot. And then I decided that it was an opportunity to maybe branch out on my own. So I had someone approach me. We had conversations, and lo and behold, and on my birthday, September 11th of 2000, we opened up Success Mortgage. That was a great birthday present. And so this is our 25th year in business. And so 3 years after I opened up my company, I decided to open up a title company as well. I did that in 2003. So I was a licensed title agent, and I had my mortgage company, and I went from there. Basically, the title company, the geographical area outgrew our local office. So we made some changes on that. But as far as the mortgage broker side of things. That was really where my passion was. So I decided to keep that and do something different with the title company.
Okay. So Success Mortgage has been around 25 years now. Almost, we're
Yes.
coming up on our 25th anniversary actually for you. With that being said, like, tell me a little bit about your shop. Are you a one-person shop? You regional, you national? Tell us a little bit about Success Mortgage.
Yeah. So we have 22 loan officers now. We are multi-state. We also have a branch office in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. But we have expanded into multiple states for different reasons, and it's doing very well.
Now, what would you say, like, if you think of Success Mortgage, like, what would you guys say is your bread and butter? Is it purchases, is it refi, VA? Maybe it's non-QM. I don't know. Where's your guys' bread and butter, and where do you think you live?
We definitely are a purchase business. First and foremost, we always have been. Back in the day when we had subprime,
Oh yeah.
we, that was it was so easy that it was scary, and I shied away from it a lot because it seemed too easy. So we didn't really do a lot of subprime, but I think we do enjoy the non-QM area. We have a lot of investors, and of course it's been, the market for that. So, but we definitely are purchase heavy. We have a multi-state relationship with a real estate company. And so I would say that our superpower is being a mortgage broker. We're also a correspondent lender, but just being able to give, our clients the best of all situations.
Yeah, that's what us brokers do best. And for people that do not know what subprime is, it's basically non-QM. And if you really want to dive into it, go watch the movie The Big Short. It's an absolutely phenomenal movie. It will explain everything to you. They don't really give mortgage brokers the best light on things, but you'll understand what it is. So, I got a question for you. Since you have a real estate office, a bigger real estate office, how did you break into that office? Because that's a lot of questions I get. Is Mark, like, there's this huge real estate office. They have 50 agents, 100 agents. It doesn't matter. How did you break in there?
Well, it started with doing first time home buyer seminars way, way, way back in the day.
Yep.
So, people used to come to a location and learn, and it really started in that realm. So our motto is educate to dominate. And for our real estate relationships, we do a lot of education, a lot of training. We take them up to UWM. We took a group of 50 of our realtors, and we're getting ready to take another group of 35. And so I think that educating them does the same thing, right? Loan officers are like, here's a flyer. Can I come talk about my products? Can I come do face-to-face stuff with you? But I think sometimes what they miss is everybody's doing that. So what is it that you can actually bring to the table that's going to make them more money, make their life easier, or make them look like a rock star? So our perspective is, look, we can help you close quickly so your contracts get, if you're up against another agent, they're going to say, oh, this agent always closes early. They always close fast. We can empower them with that. Efficiency, communication, education. We do a lot of Zoom with our realtors and our borrowers together to keep everybody on the same page, because unlike back in the day when everybody would come to the office, people are spread out. And especially if you're in multi-states, you have to find a way to stay connected with everybody. So the initial meeting, we do a Zoom, make sure everybody's on the same page. We make sure they have the contract. We know all the things that are going on. And we just try to educate them through the process while providing them an excellent experience.
No, that's perfect. And two things about that to kind of piggyback you on is the success track thing. We just had Matt Ishbia on as the opening guest, for season 5, and he said he spends $80 million on success track bringing people out. I mean, That's a big number, and it kind of goes back to the education side of things. You're not just educating realtors, you're educating divorce attorneys, financial planners, your consumers, your borrowers, so it's absolutely huge. But the other thing that you said there is like, what differentiates yourself? You know what I mean? Like, yes, everyone's doing these flyers. Everyone has, within reason, the same tech stack, you know what I mean? Or a version of it. So what are you doing to differentiate yourself? Because we get these AEs calling us all the time saying, "Hey, we have great rates." It's like, okay, everyone has great rates. Stop saying that. Why am I going to use you? But I think
Mhm.
I think that's absolutely huge what you're saying right there.
Absolutely. And we just had a conversation with our team this morning, actually, and they're like, oh, I met this agent and she wants me to meet some other agent relationships that she has. And I said, well, you need to do that and you need to invite them. We call it the Wizard of Oz trip. So we take them up there to give them a peek behind the curtain to see what all magic happens behind the curtain that they never get subjected to. And our conversation with the agent is, look, it's very competitive. I just heard some stats a couple days ago where last year 74% of the real estate population did not close one transaction. So 26% of the real estate community did all the business last year. So to me, I was like, that's awful. How do we empower these people to get out and actually get some transactions? Well, they need to have meaningful conversations. They need to be educated on how to help homeowners with ideas or, structuring or moving. We're having conversations about the transition of generational wealth. Let's talk to, I told the real estate agents, I said, call all of your past clients and start having this conversation with them about the transfer of generational wealth. What does that mean? Well, would you rather use the equity of your home that you're leaving as the inheritance for your children? Would you much rather use that money now and be a part of them buying a home and being a part of that experience? Why don't we do that? And if they have 2 or 3 or 12 kids, that might be an opportunity for the realtors to have multiple transactions within the same family. And sometimes, when there are changes in the real estate market, they become frozen in fear. The whole compensation thing happened and everybody like just froze. Well, we went
Freaked
through
out.
that and
They they
yeah,
freaked out.
they freaked out. And I'm thinking, it wasn't 2008. What are you so upset about? You
Right.
know? But no, they do. And it actually gives us compassion to understand their fear. And so this is when we loan officers who are the professionals in this business need to get out here and help these agents get back on their feet, help them get out here and understand how they can create business for themselves using our tools and education and experience and, help them be successful.
Wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So you've been in the business for, I think you said 30 plus years. You said something to me when we had a previous conversation that has stuck with me, and I want you to elaborate on it. Because we do talk a lot about relationship building, and that's I would say for brokers to retail, that's the big difference maker right there. And I 100% agree with it, but you said it needs to be more. What do you mean by that?
So relationship building, it comes in a multitude of forms. And whether it be relationship building with my loan officer team, I think the most important thing for them is to make them feel like they have ownership, help them create their empire under my roof without all the liability and stress. But,
Right.
how if they are strong and they are educated and they are trained, because I always say to them, there's trained and there's untrained. You want to be trained. That's what's going to set you apart and help you make bonding relationships with your real estate agents, because they're not going to want to go to somebody else who doesn't offer them the same comfort and the same, feeling of security that they know that what they're doing. So that's one part of it. And then as far as the relationship with the real estate agents, and there's industry relationships too, having relationships with the termite company, the home inspectors, the surveyors, the people downtown that do the recordations. My outlook on that is you have to really invest in knowing how everything is done. Look at the big picture. So you have to, as I was coming up in the business, I didn't know what appraisers did exactly. I didn't know what they were looking for. I didn't know what could kill my deal, what would be a red flag. So I sat down with several appraisers and said, okay, tell me what you do. Why does it take you this long to do the inspection report? What kind of information are you gathering? Where do you gather the information? Just really kind of understanding their job. I also did that with surveyors. I did it with an auction company, a real estate auction company, title company, termite company, everybody. And for me, I felt like that was the most empowering thing. That was a game changer for me. It was like became my superpower that I knew all the third party jobs and how that affected our transaction. I took that and turned that into a way to do relationship building with my realtors, because in our conversations, I mean, we could talk about kids and dogs and all those cool things that I like to talk about too, but it's also, let's talk about the whole transaction. And do you know that this is what they do? And this is what they do. And these are the things we need to be looking out for. If we have a government loan or a conventional loan or a VA loan, whatever it is, I think that building the relationship is communication and knowing that you are their partner. And that you're just as invested, if not more. Sometimes when you come to an agent and you seem more educated on the industry than they do, they tend to cling to you because they want to know it too. And they also feel safe in, having you as a partner. So I think in building the relationships, you really need to be that person, that game changer to them, instead of showing up with rate sheets and great charm, that you're actually there to change the game and to help them also, buy into the big picture and what that means moving forward.
No, I love that, and that's absolutely perfect. I mean, I, we talk about relationships and being part of your community, and I think a lot of people put a monetary amount on it. I just love people, you know what I mean? Like I love meeting new people and hearing new stories. I mean, I think that's why I love this podcast, because, I would never have met you without this podcast. And the thing about it is I get to know people, create as much of a relationship with them as I can, as long as they're pretty cool. And then, sometimes deals pop out of it. Now, yes, there's a back and forth on it. I don't do it for the deals, but I'm going to tell you right now, it helps out a lot.
It does. It does.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
with your, being a mortgage vet and being on every aspect pretty much of the transaction, dipping your toes in the title stuff. What do you think us brokers, like what besides just the relationship building, what do you think is a differentiator for us, over the years? Because you were part of the industry, as I was, when we were 70% of the market, and now we're
Yes.
26, 27%. So right now, what is the difference maker for us?
Well, I think that we need to look at wholesale, like we're getting the paint and not just the paintbrush, right? So I mean that, retail and wholesale. So in retail, it's like you have the paintbrush, but in wholesale, you actually get the paint to create and be strategic. And it's not only, I think that in today's world, as opposed to, in the past, I do believe that after the crash, we needed to have some regulations, right? We needed to have
Yeah.
some barriers. But I think the difference today is that it's still very strategic financing, but in a responsible way. And so I think that loan officers need to understand all the opportunities that they have, being the paint and the paintbrush, and be able to communicate that to people. Also, I think that we need to embrace what's coming in the future. AI, people need to embrace that. They need to not that it's going to replace anybody, but you definitely want to use that to your advantage in all aspects, of what we're doing. And so I think that utilizing AIM and your, all the relationships that we have with you guys, utilizing UWM and taking advantage of that. The loan officers have to understand that not everybody has this stuff. So if you don't use it, then it doesn't mean anything. But when you do, it sets them apart. And I think that they forget we didn't have all this stuff back then. Back then it was like the Wild West, like you said. But in today's world, we have so much more to offer, and we need to not only be proud of it, but we need to use it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was speaking to a local retail person. She's very successful, and I've been trying to get her to come over to wholesale forever. I'm still working on it. But like we were talking about the economy and like this is what's going on. And in all honesty, she had no idea what the hell I was talking about. Like
Mm.
and I was trying to tell her, I was like, on the wholesale side, us loan officers, broker owners, processors, we nerd out on this stuff. And I
We
use the nerd
do.
out in a very cool way. Like we nerd out on this stuff. We read about all of the laws, new guideline changes, everything. So I think that's what we need to use to our advantage too. Like another example, I had someone say, "Well, I'm going to go to my local bank," and I'm like, "Why?" Like
Yeah.
just why? Well, I keep my money there. That has nothing to do with this. That person most likely sitting at that desk has not even truly been licensed because of the SAFE Act. Like so are you just going to go to a financial planner because they're just at a big building? No, you want to go to a financial planner who has gotten their licenses, taken their continuing education. So I think that's a big differentiator for us as well.
I do too. And I think loan officers need to operate more like CEOs. I say to my loan officers all the time, I want you to look at yourself like you are the CEO, and you're in a hiring mode and you're looking at yourself as a candidate. Would you hire you? And they kind of step back a little bit. And I said, no, honestly, I mean, as a CEO, you're looking for a multitude of things. You want somebody to represent your company. You want somebody to be the master of their craft. You want somebody who's going to be motivated, who's going to give great client experience. If you were to look at yourself, would you hire you? And and they all giggle, but it's just a way for them to understand that knowing your business is our responsibility. And I don't think that it ends with just regulations and, guidelines and things like that. You have to have the big picture. You have to know your industry. And how else are you going to best serve, head off red flags, help people navigate through difficult situations. So I tell them all the time, you need to operate like a CEO, which embodies everything that you just said about what they need to know and what they need to do. So I don't know. I think that sometimes that helps them take a look within without us having to say, you could do a little better. You could,
Right.
do this or that. But if they're operating as a CEO, they're going to go to training. They're going to know the guidelines. They're going to look at their industry partners. They're going to know what their industry partners do and how it affects and all of the good things that are going to help the business grow.
No, absolutely. So we at this time of recording, we're just past quarter one that just finished. Once again, at the time of this recording, rates have probably had their two best days that they've had in years, which is nice because like I'm talking to people like within our industry, I get a lot of calls, make a lot of outbound calls. And they're just like, Mark, I'm so busy. I'm excited again. And I'm like, that's great. And it's not like rates are in the threes or fours again. They're just a little bit better. And it's very exciting. So with that being said, we got 3 more quarters left. what is Success Mortgage, the CEO of Success Mortgage, Robyn Graves? What is your mindset kind of, not finishing out the year because we got a long way to go, but for the rest of the year?
Well, our mindset is to, we've scaled to make sure that we're prepared. But moving forward, I think that this is our time to shine. This is what we've been waiting for. All the prior months and the prior years where, we still did business, but this is our moment, and we need to take advantage of it, and we need to make the best of our relationships. We need to embrace all of the technology. We need to embrace the education part, and we need to really just take advantage of what's coming and what's already here, actually, because our phones are ringing off the hook too. So, but yeah, I think that just staying in the mindset of, don't slow down, never relax, or whatever Matt says, get to it and do what you've been trained to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it was funny because I was just talking to John Haddad, our CEO, and he's phenomenal. And I always tell everyone, if you haven't had a chance to meet this guy or see him on social media, go do it. He's very, very impressive. But, the big thing, with this whole Mr. Cooper rocket thing,
Oh, yes.
it's big right now. And I'm not going to dive into that and everything behind it. I don't care about that. What the thing that hit me on the head the most when I was talking to John and some other people was, what we do right now is we look at our past client database, because that's really our bread and butter, and we market to them in, in soft ways. But at the same time, we look at them and say, oh, they're at 3.5%. There's no way they'll ever do anything. Move on to the next person, which is the biggest mistake possible, because I guarantee you, one, you don't know what's going on in their lives right now. Number two is, if you don't call them, they're going to.
Yes. That's so funny. Were you on our staff call this morning? Because that's exactly
No, I wasn't.
That's exactly what we were talking about today. One of the things that we do every week, we have a Zoom, because our loan officers are spread out amongst multiple states, and so every week we have our Zoom company meeting, and we always invite our AE from UWM to jump on to go over, different changes that UWM has, but also, check on our status, our pro ranking status and stuff like that. But we were just having this conversation about calling refinances. And I said, first of all, you don't know what's going on in their life. I mean, the credit card debt is so exuberant. It's the highest it's ever been. And sometimes just a family having to put 4 tires on a car can put them in, delinquent. So I said, you have to call them. You have to find out what's going on. They could have a medical scenario going on or whatever, but don't think just because you closed them 2 years ago or a year and a half ago or whatever, that things are still great and hunky-dory. And if they are great, at least they've heard from you, but maybe they're not. And you have to know how to strategically, and this is where our consultant hat comes on. Like you said, we nerd out on all this stuff, and it's so that we can have these cool conversations with homeowners and say, hey, did you ever think about doing this? Or maybe this would work. Or, if we took a portion of this and did that, it's having the paint to our paintbrush to be able to look at this broad picture and say, how can we help these folks? When we were talking about the generational wealth thing, I said, I want you to think about this for a minute. If you called all of your real estate agents and said, hey, let's have a conversation about the transfer of generational wealth and how can we utilize that with your closed clients. Now you have the real estate agent calling their past clients for a refinance for you, because they're going to get a purchase out of it. So now you're getting your real estate agents out there to do some work for you, and give you these relationships to try to create this business, because they know that if these folks refinance or do home equity lines or whatever, now they're going to have business of their own. So it's a great conversation to have, and it's a reason for them to call. But, you know, I think that having the rates, you know, come down and all, it's a great way to open the conversation. But you're 100% right. I think too many loan officers get in their head. They get frozen in fear and they say, oh, I'm not going to call them because I just closed them and they're going to think I'm crazy. And how does this work? But you know what I also think, Mark, too, is you would be surprised how many loan officers, it hasn't really been a refi industry, right? So if you have new loan officers coming in the last couple of years, they don't even know how to do a refinance. Right. They don't know how to structure it. And so I think that, you know, as owners and leadership and things like that, like we need to focus on those people, do some training with our loan officers and make sure that they understand how that works so that they can move forward if they have somebody that's interested, but also give them the broad spectrum of all the advantages, like you just said.
Use your home as a financial vehicle. That's what I tell all of my clients. That's what I tell all my loan officers. Your home, unless you're a multi-millionaire or billionaire, use your home as a financial vehicle. It's the best one out there. So, Robyn, listen, hey, I've taken up a lot of your time. You've been absolutely great. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I think you gave us some insight, a lot of different insight that we probably haven't gone over. So I just want to thank you for joining us today. You did an absolutely phenomenal job.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
No problem. So brokers, if you want to catch up on all of our past podcast episodes, as well as other AIM Network podcasts, please head over to aimgroup.com/broker to broker. You can also listen and watch all AIM Network podcast episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can download a podcast. If you're on YouTube, use the handle and subscribe to it at AIM National for more great wholesale content. Everyone else, please rate our podcast and leave a review. It helps us spread the word in proving to the world that brokers are best. And Robyn, you are obviously one of them, and just want to thank you for joining us again.
Thank you so much.